Thea Stilton. Mouseford Academy. Mice take the stage. Scholastic. Snout in the clouds. It was a SFY day on Whale Island. Mouseford Academy's music class was packed with eagerly squeaking students. Professor Anna Arya had a special lesson planned for the day. She would be lecturing about popular music from around the world. The T sisters Colette, Nikki, Pam, Paulina, and Violet were seated in the front row, determined not to miss a single word. But Professor Arya, who usually had her paws planted firmly on earth, seemed to have her snout in the clouds. She'd forgotten her notes in the teacher's lounge, she couldn't get the stereo to play, and she kept losing her train of thought. The Thea sisters could see their professor needed a helping paw. Faster than the mouse who ran up the clock, Nikki ran to get the professor's notebook. Violet consulted her own notes and helped the professor get her lecture back on track. As for Pam, she put her magic fix-it paws to work and got the stereo working again. "Thank you, Mouselets," said Professor Arya. She tapped a few keys on her computer and told the class, the track you're about to hear is, a typical example of a traditional Japanese song. But as the first notes began to play, Paulina murmured, "Japan, my paw." "This is a Mouse flute song from Peru." The students giggled under their whiskers as the professor quickly tried to change the song. It was obvious she was more confused than a rodent in a cat kennel. Professor Arya pulled herself together, and the lesson continued without any other problems. But as soon as they left the classroom, the Thea sisters began chattering about their teacher. Professor Arya was more lost than a lab rat in a maze. Nikki commented, "Something must be bothering her." I wonder, Paulina reflected. This past week I've seen her in the computer lab a bunch of times, typing and sighing, sighing and typing. She's distracted. She's making lots of silly mistakes, isn't it obvious? Colette exclaimed. She's got all the symptoms. Professor Arya must be in love. Let's go to the computer lab and get all the juicy details. The mouselets scurried over to the lab. It was nearly empty. Most students were at lunch. The only rodent seated at a computer was Professor Arya. The music teacher was tapping steadily on the keys. Then she cried, "Oh, my good mouse! I can't believe it!" A mysterious friend. Alarmed, the Thea sisters hurried to their professor's side. She was chatting with someone on the computer. The screen lit wide with the words, "I would like to hold our next concert on Whale Island. After all these years, at last we'll have a chance to see each other again. What do you say? A concert on Whale Island?" Who was the professor chatting with, and why did she seem so flustered? Colette, Nikki, Pam, Paulina, and Violet exchanged curious glances. "Oh, it's nothing, mouselets," said Professor Arya, trying to calm down. "I'm talking to Mark Mousington, an old friend I've just gotten back in touch with." Colette, who was always very well informed, twitched her tail. "Mark Mousington? You mean the producer of the Mouserific Rat Street Boys?" The other mouselets stood there with their snouts hanging open like a pack of hungry cats at feeding time. The Rat Street Boys were the hottest band on Mouse Island. "Yes, him," Professor Arya admitted with a smile. "We grew up together. We've been friends since we were Mousellings." The professor pulled an old photo out of her pocket. It showed a young mouselet holding a guitar, her snout was full of joy and hope, and she was smiling broadly. Next to her was a young mouse with a crazy fur do and a funny outfit. He was looking at her tenderly. It was the professor and Mark Mousington, many years earlier. We were close friends who shared a love of music. When we turned 15, we started our first band, Professor Arya explained. We played small shows whenever and wherever we could. It was so much fun to go through it all together. And then what happened? Violet asked. The professor's snout turned sad. One day a famous agent contacted me about a role in a musical directed by Professor Ratishnikov. It was a great honor, and they really wanted me. So I left, and unfortunately Mark and I fell out of touch. But over the years, I've followed his career as a producer. And now we've found each other again thanks to the internet. Just then, a new message from Mousington flashed on screen. Everything okay? If there's a problem, I can hold the concert someplace else. Professor Aria reflected for a moment. Then she typed, we would be happy to host you and the Rat Street Boys at Mouseford. The Mouselets were so excited, they couldn't help squeaking loudly. Yee-ee-ah. The professor's old pal was still typing. He had another idea. The Rat Street Boys needed an opening act for their show, and Mousington wanted to choose a band from among the students at Mouseford. He suggested holding a contest to see who'd get to open the show. What a fabulous idea, cried Colette. She and the other Thea sisters were happier than a pack of Mousellings on their first trip to Lucky Cheese. A concert by their favorite musical group, plus an exciting new challenge to face together. Her students' excitement made Professor Aria smile. Then her expression turned thoughtful. She wondered what it would be like to see her childhood friend again after so many years. Pam's predicament. Professor Ratishnikov and the other professors in the art, music, and theater department were enthusiastic about hosting a Rat Street Boys concert, especially when they heard about the contest. It was a fantastic opportunity for their students to practice and perform live. The auditions were set for the end of the week, when the Rat Street Boys would be on the island. News of the contest spread through the halls of the academy faster than the smell of melting cheese. Nearly every mouse at Mouseford decided to participate. Ruby Flashyfur, who was always ready to take center stage, told everyone she knew Mark Mousington very well. Winning this contest is going to be easier than taking a cheese pop from a Mouselling, she boasted to her friends, the Ruby crew. Meanwhile, Mouseford's other students were seriously getting organized. The moment the Thea sisters had heard about the contest, they decided to form a group. They met in the Lizard Club common room to plan their act. The five of us are very close, Nikki observed. And we each know how to sing or play an instrument. Mouselets, we're practically a band already. I think I could write a song for us to play, Violet said timidly. Teal play the guitar, Nikki continued. Paulina clapped her paws. My synthesizer can provide all the backup instruments we need. It'll sound as if we have a full orchestra behind us. Yeses, cheered Colette. And I could sing. I guess I'll play. I'll play. Pam muttered. Then she scratched her snout. Oh, mumbling mufflers, mouselets. I don't know what I could possibly play. Her friends gathered around her, suggesting various options. You can be our backup singer, Pam. No, we absolutely need a saxophone. Why don't you try the triangle? Thanks, sisters, but I don't think we're following the right strand of string cheese. Pam said thoughtfully. What a predicament! A band without Pam was out of the question, the Thea sisters all agreed on that. For a moment, the Mouselets thought about sieving up. But Pam wouldn't hear of it. Teal figure it out, I promise. Why don't you grab your instruments and start getting ready? I'll meet you in the practice room in a little while. So the group went their separate ways, and Pam stayed alone, thinking. If I could only play the monkey wrench. She reflected, smiling ruefully. A brewing storm. Professor Aria was determined to encourage all her aspiring rock stars. She left different musical instruments in the school's rehearsal rooms for the students to try out. Violet was the Thea sisters' resident music expert. She immediately began setting up for band practice in her favorite practice room. When Nikki and Paulina entered the room, they found Violet waiting there with a copy of the musical arrangement for each of them. The melody was really lovely, and the Mouselets began practicing at once. "Careful, Nikki," Violet said as she listened to her friends practice. "The harmony changes here, it's easy to miss." Then she turned to Paulina, who was playing violin chords on her synthesizer. "Wait, I'm not sure about that. Let's try wind instead of strings." "But, 1 second. Where's Colette?" Right then, Colette burst into the room. "Sorry, Mouselets. I got stuck in math class." "You're here at last," Violet interrupted. "Come on, we've been waiting for you. The whole time the Thea sisters practiced, let's get to work." Violet paced nervously among them, giving them tips on how to improve their playing. But as hard as Nikki, Paulina, and Colette tried, they couldn't get the right sound. Their music seemed out of tune and offbeat. That wasn't surprising, the Mouselets were all so afraid of messing up that each one was concentrating too hard on her own part. They'd forgotten to listen to one another, so there was no harmony. They sounded worse than cat claws on a chalkboard. "That's enough, Mouselets," Violet finally blurted out. "This is not the melody I wrote for our group." "We're trying our best, Vi," Nikki replied. She was feeling tired and grew shy after their long practice. Colette nodded in exhaustion. "Nikki's right, we need more time to practice." "It's the first time we've played this piece," Paulina added, trying to be tactful. "We're trying our best, and that's more important than playing perfectly." Violet was stunned. Perhaps she had been too harsh with her friends, but music required discipline. But, she managed to stutter. "We have to keep working if we want to get it right. I'm doing this for the group. Don't you understand?" "Vi, we know we aren't as good as you," Nikki said. "But that's why we need to work twice as hard. And your criticism is making us nervous." "I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to help you play better," Violet insisted. "Music requires sacrifice, hard work, and commitment." "That's true, but it also requires joy, passion, and enthusiasm," Colette interrupted. "And, to be honest, you're taking all the fun out of it." Violet recoiled in shock. "Well, then maybe you'll be better off without me." And she jumped up and scurried out of the practice room. Her friends watched her go, but they didn't try to stop her. The Thea sisters' first band practice had ended in a fight. "Drumroll, please." At that very moment, unaware of her friend's troubles, Pam was wandering around trying to figure out how she could fit into the band. The academy's hallways were deserted, all the students were busy practicing. All, or almost all. Suddenly, the Mouselet's friend Ellie Squid popped out of a classroom. "Hey, Pam!" "Hi, Ellie," Pam replied with a sad smile. "Why aren't you preparing for Mark Mousington's auditions?" "Oh, don't even squeak that name to me," Ellie moaned. "Craig, Tanya, and I want to form a group, but there isn't enough time to practice. How about you and the other Thea sisters?" Pam shook her snout sadly. "If only it were a dance competition, I've got some awesome hip-hop moves," she said. "But I don't have the chops to play a musical instrument." As she was squeaking, Pam beat one paw on the wall next to her. "Tippity-tappity-tip. I just can't think of any instrument that's right for me," she went on, knocking her paws lightly against the wall. Tippity-tappity-tip-tip-tap, Ellie's snout lit up. "Actually, I think I know just the instrument for you." "Come on, Pam! Without waiting for her friend to answer, she took Pam by the paw and dragged her into town. Soon they'd reached the Thrifty Rat, the store Ellie's sisters ran. Ellie led Pam into the storage room, which was cluttered with I have an idea objects, hat boxes, irons, a rocking chair, velvet armchairs, a gramophone, a pair of old skis. You can find almost anything at the Thrifty Rat, Pam said as she looked around. Ellie nodded. Yeah, that's why we're here. Look! She led Pam to a bulky shape covered with a large white cloth. Ellie whipped off the sheet, revealing the most beautiful drum set Pam had ever seen. It was bright red, with yellow flames. It seemed a bit worn, but otherwise, it was perfect. Jumping gerbil babies, that's a sweet set of skins, exclaimed Pam, her eyes sparkling. You see, Pam had always loved the drums. When she was a wee mooselling, she used to put on concerts using pots and pans with a spoon as her drumstick. You're a genius, Ellie, Pam said, hugging her. Why didn't I think of this before? My dad is devoted to these drums, Ellie explained. When he finds out it's for a friend, I'm sure he'll be happy to lend them to you. Pam got comfortable behind the set and unleashed a lively drum roll. Tippity-tappity-tip, tip-tip-tap-tip. A big mess. When Pam got back to Mouseford, the sun was setting. On the horizon, the sea was lit up all golden and red. She hurried to the practice room to tell her friends about the incredible discovery that she'd made in the Thrifty Rat storage room. She had no idea what kind of glue trap she was about to get stuck in. Hey, mouselets! Pam exclaimed. I have some Fabumouse news. Then she stopped and looked around in confusion. Nikki was sadly strumming a few notes on her guitar, while Colette and Paulina were wearily scribbling in their notebooks. Crumpled balls of paper covered with crossouts surrounded them. Hey! Pam said. Why the long snouts? And where's Vi? Oh, Pam, thank good mouse you're back, Colette exclaimed. We've been practicing for hours, but Violet told us we're not good enough. She kept pacing around, criticizing us. We all got really stressed, and we fought like cats and rats, and now we don't know what to do. Pam was shocked. Nikki and Paulina quickly filled her in on all the trouble they'd had during practice. We've been trying to come up with some good lyrics for the song to convince Violet to come back, said Paulina, pointing to the crumpled papers on the ground. We've been at it for hours, but we haven't come up with anything decent. What a cat!